In fact, in a recent conversation, I was talking to Jay about how I'm just sort of struggling with what is potentially an unimaginable future if climate change continues unchecked. You know, we're talking about how we're in a position now of trying to prepare ourselves and our children to survive in conditions that are unthinkable in many ways. And true to form, Jay looked at me and said, Karina, my people are already living in an unimaginable future with unthinkable consequences. You could learn a lot from us. So with that, I will ask you to welcome Jay Julius. I guarantee you will learn a lot from him tonight.
Such an honor to be here amongst great people. We're surrounded by doctors, mothers, fathers, grandparents, and just a great group of people. I've, over the last few years, made some great friends through this tireless battle that we're fighting right now, that we will see victory. And but it's been just really an honor to be a part to create new friends and work with people who truly care. I want to thank Karina for the invite. It is truly an honor. I want to thank you all for being here. I see a lot of familiar faces. Karina kept hounding me. I was in D.C. I need your bullets, or do you have an idea what you're going to talk about? And I kind of wing it. And what's inspiring my thoughts right now are what Mr. Willing just shared with me about.
In fact, in
an
a
uncle of
recent
mine
conversation, I was
Vic.
talking to Jay about how
he shared with me that he used to launch his
sort of
sailboat
with what
down
is
at
potentially
Stomach
an
Grounds on the Lummi
unimaginable
Reservation, and
future,
he'd sail out to the
if
islands.
climate
and
change continues
he got caught in a
unchecked.
treacherous storm there
We're
on
talking
the
about
beach.
how we're in a position now of trying to
And
prepare ourselves and
my
our
Uncle
children
Vic,
to survive
who was
in
very old,
conditions that are
must have been
unthinkable
born
in many
in the
ways. And true to
either
form,
late
Jay looked at
1800s
me
or early
and
1900s.
said,
I'm not really sure. I know he died in the
Karina,
80s, probably around my great-grandmother's age, who I speak about a lot, who was born in 1891, and she died when I was 5.
You could learn a lot from us. So
But
with that, I
my
will
thoughts
ask
are
you to
going that
welcome Jay
direction.
Julius.
But
I
first, I
guarantee
want
you
to
will learn a lot
ask if
from
anyone
him
knows
tonight.
the name for environmentalists before it became environmentalists. Native Americans, yes. Which is going to lead me into this walk I'm going to take you on, if I may. But first, a waitress came over and kept saying vegetarian, 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 and that's actually a word in our language, vegetarian, and it means bad hunter. I thought she was talking to me. No. That was a joke. I usually open up with my Sasquatch joke. It's a little longer. Well, it's not a joke. It's actually a true story. Last year, my son, first high school football game I just attended. My son's first football game in high school. And, well, last year he had his basketball team over, and it was a night we all watched UFC. My kids and I used to participate in mixed martial arts in California. So it's, one of our buddies was fighting, and he had 5 friends over from Ferndale from the basketball team. And,
I kind of wing it.
why my son was outside cutting kindling after the fight at 11 o'clock, I have no idea, but he's out there splitting kindling with his buddies, having a good old time. And I posted this on Facebook too, Sasquatch, caught on tape. And my daughter's out there filming him cutting kindling, and my son looks to the right, and he looks at the dog's kennel way over here, and he looks towards the woods again, and then keeps cutting wood. And then his teammate Tico stands up, and he looks over in the woods, looks at the dogs again, then looks really close. He goes, "Oh my gosh!" Didn't say another word and went flying into the house. My son took just a glimpse, and then he attempted to get up and run inside, but by the time he made it to the sliding door, the buddies behind him, this is on camera, threw him out of the way, went screaming in the house. My son fell against the cabinet, and then he regained himself, grabbed the sliding door, hit the lock button. Right when he hit the lock button, Sasquatch pounded on the window. I live on 5 acres right on the Sle-lh'x River and the mouth in Bellingham Bay. Second most sightings in the country are there. If you look at the Sasquatch books, true story. So Sasquatch pounds on the window, the sliding door, and my son was like this. He was just in shock. And then I took off the mask. I could not. Yeah. So you asked for it. That went viral. It was good.
I usually open up with my Sasquatch.
So
It's a little longer.
thank you for sharing the story of
It's not a
Vic
joke,
pulling
it's
you
an
off the
actual
beach
story.
with his chain, and
Last year,
Uncle
my
Vic
son first football
hand
game,
pulled.
first high
Any of you know what purseeining is? Nowadays you use skiff and hydraulics. Well, they actually hand pulled
last year he was,
purseeining, and
had his basketball
I shared with him that, man, they saw a lot of change, including my great-grandmother, who, like I said, was born in 1891, and my great-grandfather was born in 1888. Both died in 1980. And I'm 40 years old, so they lived a long time. They would eat fish all year round. But today, the chief of our nation sat us down in our office and went through the importance of culture and the importance of understanding who we are as a people.
And my daughter's out there filming them cutting
Just
kindling.
really showed us the photographs from the early 1900s of the Native Americans who would proudly dress the way that we dressed. A lot of cedar.
And then his
You would see our people with cedar
teammate
hats.
Tico stands up and he looks over in the woods.
But
Looks at the dogs again,
so
and looks really close.
thank you for
Oh
that,
my gosh. Didn't
which
say
is going to
another
lead
word,
me
went
into
flying into the
my
house.
sacred
My
America,
son took
just for a brief
just a glimpse,
moment.
and then he attempted to
My
get up and
America
run inside, but
is
by the
based
time
on the
he made it to
stories
sliding door,
in the
the
witnessing
buddies
of
behind him
what once
this is
was.
on camera, threw him out of the way.
My father growing
went
up on
screaming in
the river
house.
with
My
no
son
water,
fell against the
no
cabinet,
electricity,
regained
drinking
himself,
water
grabbed
from the
sliding
Nooksack
door,
River,
hit the lock button,
not
right when he hit the lock
doing
button,
anything,
Sasquatch
just drinking it straight out of the
pounded
river.
on the window. I live on 5 acres right on the
But going even further
Nooksack
back,
River
pre-contact,
in Bellingham Bay.
the stories
Second most
of
sightings in the country.
how the fish were so
If you look at the
plentiful,
Sasquatch books,
the
true
trees
story.
that we see today pale
So
in
Sasquatch
comparison to
pounds on the
what once
window,
was
the
here
sliding
in
door,
Whatcom County,
and my son
all
was like
throughout
this. He
the
was
mountains.
in shock. And then
Today I
took
saw a
off the mask,
picture
could
that the
not-
chief has on his iPad
So,
of
you asked for it.
the last document
That
or
went
the
viral.
last
It was
actual
good.
canoe from way back when. It was discovered down
So,
by my house, by the mouth of the Nooksack River.
Thank you for sharing the story of
They came
Vic
across it,
pulling
and
you off
it's
the
just
beach.
huge,
His chain and
made out of a
Uncle
cedar
Vic,
tree.
hand pulled. Any of you know
but
what purseeining is? Nowadays,
When I hear these stories and when I'm taken back in time, I love the crisp air we have today. I spent 14 years in California.
Man, they saw
Couldn't see a mountain when I was 30 miles from it because of the smog.
every corner.
Here I, really
1891 and my great-grandfather
appreciate the crisp air we have today up here.
and I'm 40 years
But
old.
when I hear these stories about the size of these trees and the winters we had and the summers we had and the plentiful fish and the plants and the roots and the medicinal
Sat us down and
plants we would go up to the mountains and get,
went through the
it just
importance of
takes me
culture.
back in time. I close my eyes and I listen to these stories of the orcas and the communication, and
Really
just everything was so
show us the
plentiful and so
photographs
pure.
the early
And we lived a
1900s of
long
the
time.
Native Americans Indians who
we lived beyond 100 years old. That was normal. But our diet consisted of fish, berries, deer, just untainted gifts for us, gifts from the Creator.
which is going to lead me into my sacred America.
They talk about how
moment.
you could walk across the streams, walk across the rivers because the fish were so plentiful.
In the witness
My great-grandfather's village was actually, or the family village was actually Whatcom Falls. What we know as Whatcom Falls today was actually a village of ours at the signing of the treaty.
from the Nooksack River, not doing anything,
So
just drinking it straight out of the river.
our highways consisted of what we call Rosario Strait, Juan de Fuca Strait, Hereos Strait, Bellingham Bay. Those were our roads.
Fish were so plentiful.
We didn't see a road that went to the
Trees
Samish
that
grounds
we see today
until
pale in comparison to
my great-grandfather John lived at the mouth of the river, and it was rare for them to
all
leave,
throughout the
go that far to Gooseberry Point after
Today
the
I
signing
saw
of
a
the treaty when we
picture
were
that the chief
relocated to the
has
reservation.
on his iPad
But the
of
sea was our
documented
highway, and
canoe
that was our way of transportation.
down by my
We'd
house,
go upriver to get to the
Nooksack
mountains.
River.
We would travel down to the
Came
Columbia to
across
trade.
was just
Um,
made out of a cedar tree.
Can't hear an airplane in the sky, I don't think, right now, but we go out to Stewart Island every year,
When I
and
hear
that's
these
just something I
stories and-
really
and wanna
take
take
in
it
and
back in
appreciate
time,
the fact that I can't hear
I love
planes
the Chris
because of
Fair we have today. I spent
all the
14 years in
noise that we
California.
listen to every day, whether
Couldn't
it's
see at night.
cars,
It
traffic,
was
planes,
30 miles from
television.
smog. Here I,
So when I'm shared the history and the
appreciate
stories of
the
what
Chris
used to
Fair we
be
have today up
here at home
But
in
when I hear these
America,
stories about the size of these trees
I
and
hear
the
a plane.
winters we had, and the summers we had,
It makes me,
wonderful
it takes me
fish
into a different
and-
time,
and the
and I'm
plants
really
and the roots
able
and
to
medicinal,
go back in time and
plants we would go
and,
to the mountains and get.
wonder what it
It
once
just
was.
takes me back in time. I
But
close
even
my
only
eyes
being
and
40 years
see
old,
the
I've seen so much change.
orcas and
I fished ever since I was
just everything was so
smaller than
wonderful,
these two
so
here.
pure.
And
we lived
I
a
fished with
long
my
time.
father, I fished with my grandfather,
We lived
um,
beyond 100 years old.
duck hunted at a young age.
Our
Just
diet
all these
consisted
things that
of
were a
fish,
part of our culture and
berries,
who we
deer,
were.
um, just
And
untainted,
this year I witnessed a disaster with the sockeye. Last year was a huge disaster with the diversion. I think it was over a 99% diversion
They
rate
talk
that went
about
around
how,
in 2014. The blob wasn't
across the
as
street,
big as it
walk
is
across
today.
the
Today
river
it's now
because the fish are so
seeping into the
plentiful.
Puget Sound, which
My
gives me
great-grandfather's
great
village was
fear
actually,
and
the
concern
family village
about
was actually Whatcom
what
Falls,
my
which is Whatcom
children's
Falls
future
Station,
looks like
which
as
was a
far
village
as
of ours,
being able to
at the signing of
um,
the treaty.
live out
So
who I am, who we are.
our
Because to
highways
us,
consisted
fishing,
of
yeah,
what
it's
we call
enjoyable, and
Rosario
yes, it's
Strait,
fun,
Juan de Fuca Strait,
but it's who
Hereos
we are.
Strait.
It's my therapy.
Bellingham
It's where
Bay.
I'm one.
Those were our roads.
When I'm on the water, I
We didn't see a
become
road that went to the Samish grounds
I
until,
become whole. I become
my
fulfilled.
great-grandfather
Uh,
John lived at the mouth of the
I
river.
share
It was
with,
rare for them to
I've shared this with Daryl when I go to the islands, to our old villages, whether it's San Juan Island, Westcott Bay, Lopez Island,
But the-
Fisherman's Bay on Lopez Island, where my
sea was
great-great-great-grandfather who signed the
our
treaties,
highway.
Reef Net, one of his Reef Net
and that
locations
was
was
our way
located
of
there. I can't help
transportation.
but go back in time and
We'd
see
go
it,
upriver to get to
and
the
see how
mountains.
that they would have their longhouses
Travel down to
structured,
the
and
Columbia to trade.
and everybody had a purpose. Nobody was up here, nobody was down here.
Can't hear
If we had a vegetarian in the family, we would provide the fish, we would provide the deer. But everybody had a purpose, and we all took part in something. The women made beautiful nets out of stinger nettles. Our reef nets were made from, whether it was stinger nettle root or bark.
So when I'm
Everyone
sharing the history,
played
the
a
stories of what
role
used to
and
be,
had a purpose. But in our culture,
home
and our way is
airplane.
you must respect
it
what the
makes
Creator
me-
has
it
gifted
takes me
us,
to a different
and
time
respect
really
the fish.
able
I
to
shared this with some friends who are farmers up in Linden that
wonder what it once
I read a
was.
scripture at the farm
But
on
even
the
only
wall,
being
and
40 years old,
and
I've
it talked
seen so
about
much
the
change.
scripture was
I fished ever since I was
don't build your house on
smaller
sand.
than these two here.
And we talked about farming and the importance of farming, and we too were farmers pre-contact, and we were farmers after the signing of the treaty, and each of us had a farmer in charge of each reservation.
And
But
this year I witnessed
the way I see it is
sockeye. Last year was a
the
huge
Creator
disaster with the diversion.
created this
There was a
garden before we even
99%
existed.
diversion rate that
The
went
Creator created this garden
2014,
that
the
you don't
block
have to
wasn't
go
as
in and
big as it is
cultivate. You
today.
don't have to
Today
go
it's
in and
seeping into the
do
Puget
this
Sound,
work,
which
but you
gives me
have
great fear
to
and
respect it.
concern.
And I'm referring to the salmon, I'm
what
referring to the
my
shellfish.
children's
You can't
future
consume it
as
all,
far
you
as
can't pollute it, you
being
can't
able to,
kill it. It is a gift. And what I've seen in the last 35 years
who we are.
is
Because to us,
destruction
fishing,
to
it's
a gift
enjoyable and
that
yes,
was
it's
given to
fun.
all of us, each and every one of
But
us,
it's who we
and
are.
everyone
It's
who
our therapy.
calls this place home.
On the water, I become
And that's kind of where I'm at now is
filled.
I shared this with Daryl about 3 months ago.
I share. I've shared this.
you know,
with
what have
Daryl
we
when I
done to
go
the
the
garden?
islands, to our old
What have we
villages,
done to
San
the
Island,
this
Westcott
gift,
Bay,
this harvest that
Lopez
comes
Island,
back every 4
Fisherman's
years?
Bay on Lopez Island,
Every
where my
single
great,
4
great,
years,
great
these sockeye
grandfather
come
sold
back.
the treaties
Every
for
year the
$50
coho
a
come
week
back.
and
Every year the
fisheries
chum
for
come
free.
back.
There
Every
can't
2
help
years the
but
pink
come
salmon
and
comes
see it
back.
and
What have we
see
done?
that they would have their
We've
longhouses
declared
shut.
disasters, and the federal
Everybody
government
had
has honored it
rules.
numerous
Nobody was up
times
here
in the
and
last
nobody was
20
down
years.
here.
And
If we had a vegetarian in the
and I
family,
shared with Karina that
fish. We would provide the deer.
I'm not an environmentalist.
Everybody had a purpose.
I'm not a tree hugger.
And we all.
But what you guys
took
stand
part
for
in
is our
something.
basic.
The women made beautiful nets out of stinger
It's
nets.
who we
Leaf
are.
nets were made from,
So,
whether it was
however we
stinger
label,
or
however we're labeled
bark.
at the federal government
Everyone
yesterday and the day
played a
before and the day
role,
before,
had a purpose. But in
had
our
to
culture, and
clarify
our-
some mischaracterizations
our
about us
way
riding the
is
coattails of
you must
of,
respect what the Creator has given us
environmentalists and
respect.
express to them that we're
I shared
just,
this with some
we have
friends
principles we
who
have to
are
live by.
farmers up in Linden that
Things need protection that don't have voices.
scripture at the farm on the wall,
And
it talked about the scripture was don't build your
and
house
that,
on
that,
sand.
that
And we talked about farming and the importance of farming.
it's hard to
We too were
to
farmers
witness where we're at
pre
today.
contact, and we were farmers after
And
the
it's
signing
hard
of the treaty.
for me to live
Each
every
was a
day
farmer in charge
hoping
of
that
each
these
reservation.
children can see at least what I have witnessed in my lifetime.
The way
At
I
least,
see it
at
is
bare minimum. I want
The
back
Creator,
what my great grandparents
this
saw and what they
garden
went through.
before we
Um,
even existed,
When they could dive off the bridge at the
Creator
Nooksack River and
created
not
this
hit
garden
bottom.
that
When they
you
could
don't
drink
have
out
to
of the
go in and
river.
cultivate. You don't have
When
to
the
go
fish
in
could come back, and
do
it
this
wasn't a
work,
question
but
of
you
whether or
have
not they would come back.
to
It's,
respect it. Referring to
when
the
will they
salmon,
arrive?
referring to the
That's the way it
shellfish.
used to be.
You can't
It wasn't a
consume
question of
it,
whether or
you
not
can't
they would
pollute it,
come
you
back.
can't
They were
kill it. It
here
is a
every
gift.
4 years.
And
They were here
what
every
I've
2
seen in
years.
the last
Kings were here
35
every year.
years
Um,
is destruction to a gift
So,
that was given to all of
that's
us, each and every one of
taking,
us, and
everyone
who
back a little
calls this
bit
place
to
home.
what is precious to me. My sacred America
And that's kind of where
stems
I'm
from
at
the
now
stories
is-
of my
is,
grandparents.
I shared this
And
with
I'm
Daryl about
sure
3 months ago.
many of you have stories and have witnessed and
You know, what have we
seen
done to the
many
garden?
changes.
What have we done
And
to this gift, this
I guess it-
harvest that comes back every
I
4
can make you
years.
this promise.
Every single 4
I'm going to
years.
raise kids who
Every year the
know what it
coho,
once was,
every year the chum comes
who
back.
know what their responsibility is
Comes back.
to at least
We-
keep it the way it
we've had
is,
disasters
thinking
and the federal government
of
has
the
honored
basic
numerous
indigenous
times in the last 20
principle,
years,
and that is thinking
um,
7 generations
I
ahead.
shared with Karina
That's not just, because it's not just about us.
that I'm not a tree
Our way of thinking has always been,
What you guys
it's not
stand
about
for
you,
is our
it's
basic.
about them. And it's about
It's
their
who we
children
are.
and their children.
So,
And what are we going to do to make sure that
however
they
we
have a good
at
future?
the federal
They
government
have clean
yesterday
water.
and the day before
They
and the
have
day
water.
before, had to,
Never knew much about glaciers.
clarify some
I never knew
mischaracterizations
much
us
about
riding the coattails
climate
of-
change
of,
prior to
environmentalists
about 4 years ago.
and
And,
express to 'em
and
that we're just-
I've learned a lot
we have
lately.
principles we
And
live by.
what's taken place
Things
with
need
our
protection
glacier
that don't have voices.
is deeply concerning to me.
And
So, I am over my time because of that Sasquatch story, Karina. But I make you that promise that I will teach my kids culture.
for me
I will
to
teach them to be proud
that these children
to be a
see
Lummi,
at least
because with that pride comes
at least
responsibility.
bare minimum. I
With
want
that pride comes
my great-grandparents
responsibilities for all of us, because we all have a purpose. And that includes each and every one of us here, but that's just a principle and who we are. And I ask the same of all of us. And I think I'm sitting here using this phone for my notes, and maybe how can we strategize and come up with some unique ways to educate the young and make them aware of what sacred America once was and our obligation and what we should be doing to preserve it and keep it sacred and keep these resources available for future generations. And I think technology can play a big part in that. I fear technology right now because what we've witnessed is I share this with my son. Don't you ever ask a girl out on Facebook or text message. Ever. Because we're losing our ability to communicate. It's simple. I mean, I remember I think I was in 7th grade, I had to write a letter to this girl and check yes or no and put a box in. And that took some courage. Now they just send a text and Snapchat and a selfie, and if they say no, no big deal because they weren't there to witness it. But I think technology can inform, can do a lot of service for us as we move forward into the future. I know that together we can have victory and win these battles that are necessary. One example, and I want to thank you, Karina, and Resources for your work, for being on the ground, fighting the fights. I know all of you and many others deserve thanks and appreciation.
But I make you that promise.
But one example I'll share. How, I may not be an environmentalist.
I will teach them.
Maybe I am.
Be proud
you can call me whatever you want. But we're fighting the same fight. And a lot of times we're fighting the same fight. And in the future we will continue to fight. Everywhere, every generation of ours has been in some sort of resistance, whether it was fish or whether it was protection of treaty rights. Whatever the case may be, we will be in the same fight. And in this particular fight with Cherry Point, many of you know what took place in June of 2011 after a study came out February 28, 2011, identifying with precision certain areas up in the location of this proposed project, kind of triggered some anger, a lack of trust. But from us, it created
and I think technology can play a big part.
It was necessary for us to go out and demand accountability, demand upholding the law, whether it's state law, whether it's federal law, 106 process, a 110K violation. That way the permit's gone because they did it themselves without the necessary permits. And it didn't carry any teeth.
Because we're losing our ability.
Unfortunately, a lot of Indian policy and Indian law is not centered or designed to protect Indian rights in things, sacred sites.
That took some courage.
But this is an example of where, without working together, but working together, fighting the same fight, you guys were able to come in and demand accountability through Clean Water Act, 404, however you guys attacked that, and that was very powerful, and that came up yesterday in Washington D.C. Because Senate and Congress there were asking about NEPA and 106 process, and why can't that just stop it? But I want to thank you guys for that, and thank you for your tireless work, and I just encourage you to keep up the work, keep up the fight. You're a great example for these children. Again, it's an honor to be here, and I know you can't fight that fight without help from others, from individuals, from groups, and I just really want to put my hands up to you, and I want to gift you with one of our hats, my hats, and just to show my appreciation for your work and let you know it's an honor to be here. And I thank you for the invite, and I thank each and every one of you for the work that you do, for everything you do for your people, for your servant leadership. Heishka in my language means thank you. I say Heishka. Thank you very much.
Identifying with precision certain areas up in the location of this proposed project kind of triggered some anger, so a lack of trust. But from us, it created it was necessary for us to go out and demand accountability, demand upholding the law, whether it's state law, whether it's federal law, 106 process, a 110K violation. That way the permit's gone because they did it themselves without the necessary permits. And it didn't carry any teeth. Unfortunately, a lot of Indian policy and Indian law is not centered or designed to protect Indian rights in things, sacred sites. But this is an example of where, without working together, but working together, fighting the same fight, you guys were able to come in and demand accountability through a Clean Water Act, 404, however you guys attacked that. And that was very powerful. And that came up yesterday in Washington, D.C., because Senate and Congress there were asking about NEPA and 106 process, and why can't that just stop it? But I want to thank you guys for that, and thank you for your tireless work. And I just encourage you to keep up the work, keep up the fight. You're a great example for these children. Again, it's an honor to be here, and I know you can't fight that fight without help from others, from individuals, from groups, and I just really want to put my hands up to you, and I want to gift you with one of our hats, my hats, and just to show my appreciation for your work and let you know it's an honor to be here. And I thank you for the invite, and I thank each and every one of you for the work that you do, for everything you do for your people, for your servant leadership. Heishka in my language means thank you. I say Heishka. Thank you very much.